I've built a pedal board just for a Supro Delta King 12. Hey everyone, I'm Jack Fossett. Welcome to the channel and welcome to this video of this custom pedal board that I've put together exclusively, but not exclusively, for the Supro Delta King 12. For those of you that don't know this series of videos that I've been doing, the basic idea is that I'm putting together pedal boards that are tailored specifically to one amplifier. And being involved in gear reviews, I certainly have wound up with a lot of gear, particularly a lot of pedals. And while I was always very free to play with different guitars and different amplifiers and different setups, I always found myself kind of trying to come up with one perfect pedal board with all my favorites on there, which means I would try and just like put pedals on that didn't fit with others, maybe didn't work with certain amps or guitars. And I started to realize that maybe it would be a better use of my time to get small groups or teams of these pedals that really suit one amplifier. Some of my favorite pedals really sound amazing into one amplifier, but not as great into another one. So this was kind of a way of getting some of the pedals off the shelf, not letting them just collect dust, and putting some of my favorite pedals to better use. So today I've put together a pedal board again for the Supro Delta King 12. Now, the reason I said exclusively, but not exclusively, is because, yeah, the idea of this video series is to put together a pedal board that will work really well with one amp, but that's not to say that it won't work well with other amps. In fact, the first several pedal boards I've done in this series, which were for a Princeton Reverb, for a classic Marshall, and for a Fender Blues Junior, all three of those pedal boards I have used and enjoyed with a number of amplifiers, and they've worked really well in multiple settings. So take that for what it's worth. Now, we're going to dive right in. So the first pedal, I'm kind of doing everyone a solid here because this is a really unsung pedal. It's very inexpensive. It sounds absolutely awesome, and it's not exactly what it seems to be. The first pedal we're starting out with is the MXR Distortion 3. Now this is a special pedal for me. This is actually the first musical instrument gift that my wife ever got me after we first met. It was for my birthday one year. And this pedal is really rich and great sounding. It's really not a distortion. It really is more like an overdrive. And the way I describe it is, if you could take a tube screamer, dial back the mids a little bit and dial up the presence a little bit, and that's kind of what it's like. That, to me, is what it sounds like. So let's check it out with the MXR Distortion 3. Next up, we have a fuzz, and for the fuzz offering today, we're using the Keeley Fuzz Bender. This is a kind of modern interpretation of a classic sounding fuzz. It's got a lot of features, but it also retains just a great classic voice. Now, this is a pretty aggressive fuzz, it's a pretty bright fuzz, and you'll see the way that I have it set up even is sort of surprising than how it comes out in the amplifier, but it really works, and it also works in conjunction with the other pedals that I've got on here. You will notice it's not the first one in my chain. I actually like experimenting with overdriving a fuzz. I think if you do it right, you can get a lot of cool tones. It can really fatten it, it can thicken it, and you can use the fuzz knob set back a little bit, which also can yield some unique tones. So first we're going to hear just the fuzz bender on its own for some classic tones and riffs, and then we're going to hear it boosted with the MXR Distortion 3. Alright, next to round it out, I have an overdrive used as a boost. And for this, we have the One Control Persian Green Screamer. This is Bjorn's design of a tube screamer, and it can do a classic 808 thing, but the way that I'm running it is on the modern mode, which actually is kind of similar to what I was talking about with the MXR Distortion 3. It increases the clarity and sort of decreases that kind of classic compression and mid-hump a little bit. So I've got two almost tube screamers on here. Now this one I am using primarily as a clean boost. There are obviously other pedals you can use as a clean boost. I like this one because it gives me a hint of that tube screamer tone, which I think works really well in the Delta King. So we're going to hear that on its own, just as a clean boost, and then I'm also going to double it up with the MXR Distortion 3, and then also kick on the fuzz bender so you can hear all the kind of drive that I've got coming out of this. Now, before we move on to other pedals, I do want to mention one thing. I am running this amp clean. Obviously, many people use the Delta King or the Blues King, or whether it's the 12-inch speaker, whether it's one of the smaller speaker setups in lower watts. There are a lot of different ways to run these amplifiers. I really like the way that it sounds clean, and that's my preferred way to use it. Now, I don't have either of the switches on. When I play live, I would frequently use the boost, not necessarily to make it overdrive, but just to kind of fill it up a little bit more. And in a situation like that, I might change the settings on the pedals a little bit. I might kind of dial back some gain a little bit. There are other ways that you can kind of just, minor adjustments. I wouldn't use this pedal board if I were using the drive tone on the Supro. I just want to be kind of upfront about that. This is for the way that I like to use this amplifier. And if you are someone who uses the boost and the drive, then you certainly wouldn't need probably as much dirt as I have on the pedal board. So for what that's worth. Now we're going to move away from the drive and we're going to get to some fun modulation. Next up is the Pigtronics Moonpool. Now, this pedal does a lot. This pedal does some really cool dynamic modulation that you can blend. Today I'm just using it as a phaser on this board. I'm using it as a phaser that slowly ramps down in speed. And it works really well. It gives me a great kind of chewy, squishy phase tone, almost bordering on like a univibe tone, kind of the way it works with the Supro. So let's have a listen to that. reason that I'm not using the Moonpool for its tremolo sound or even its blended sound is because the next pedal on the board is a tremolo. We have the Supro tremolo. That's convenient, isn't it? This is a good time to mention that this is not a sponsored video. Many of these pedals I did get through sponsored review deals, but no one ever specifically said, hey, we want to see this pedal. If you're doing a custom pedal board like this, we want this pedal to be on there. Nobody said. I fully pick which pedals I want to be on here. That being said, I do work with Supro doing a lot of reviews. I like Supro a lot, and so when it came time to pick a pedal for the board, I went with the Supro. I'm kind of trying to do them a solid too. In that regard, you know, yeah, there are a lot of tremolo pedals that would work in this situation. You know, Pigtronics is actually associated with Supro too, so that one's kind of, but the reason I picked these pedals for the board is because I think they work and give me a good tone. And for those of you that know the other boards I've put together, there's kind of a formula that I use. So, all that being said, let's move on to the Supro Tremolo. Now, this can do a lot. This can actually boost it and give it some gain. If you wanted to do the harmonic mode, that would be a really cool way to get some classic tones. I'm really using this with a slight boost, but just as a straight up tremolo because it sounds great. And for a blues style amp, I really like having tremolo. Tremolo and reverb are kind of my two. I want them in the amp. They're not always in the amp, but there are some great pedals to kind of make up for that. So I'm using this as a straight up tremolo. All right, lastly, for a delay pedal, we have the Mojo Hand Dream Mender. This is based on the EHX Memory Man, and it gives you some cool kind of control over your modulation. It's a great vintage sounding delay. The modulation is kind of nice. I have it blended in just a little bit so that you get those kind of warbly repeats. I think it works really well. Again, this kind of being a classic amp, it's a nice warm sounding delay for an amp that has a real crisp tone. And it just works. I do not have a reverb on here because the amp has built-in reverb and I wanted to keep this board on the smaller side. So let's take a listen to how the Dream Mender sounds. So everyone, that is the custom pedal board that I have built for the Supro Delta King 12. Let me know what you think. I did test out quite a few overdrives trying to figure out which one would suit the Delta King the best. And there were actually several that I thought would work that didn't work as well as I had predicted them to. Let us know, what would you put on there? Is this an amp that you would just grab and go with no pedals at all? Or would you have a massive Star Destroyer control center pedal board with all kinds of bells and whistles on it? Now, before we close out the video, I am going to play a couple of samples of a few different pedal combinations that do some really cool tones to use more of the board at once. Again, let us know what you would put on. I'm Jack Fossett. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Please support me on Patreon, download some music on Bandcamp, listen to me on Spotify, all these great things that make me a really happy person. We'll see you next time.